My name is Sara Drew, and I am no longer an intern at Emerson Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Yeah. Yes. Welcome to those of you in person and, of course, online. So happy to see all of you this morning. There is no time of centering in the order of service this morning, so I thought we could take a moment now to settle in. And of course, that means if you're still up and walking around, you can take a moment to get here. And if you're in your seat, you can make yourself extra comfortable. Maybe getting out those, it's not that early, but I'm sort of feeling some early neck issues. I'm just going to read a poem. This is a poem I used during our women's spirituality workshop, part of my internship work. And it's a really beautiful piece of writing from The Dinner Party by Judy Chicago. And then all that has divided us will merge, and then compassion will be wedded to power. And then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind. And then all genders of people will be gentle, and then all genders of people will be strong. And then no person will be subject to another's will. And then all will be rich and free and varied. And then greed of some will give way to the needs of many. And then we'll all share equally in the earth's abundance. And then we'll all care for the sick and the weak and the old. And then all will nourish the young. And then all will cherish life's creatures. And then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth. And then everywhere will be called Eden once again. Might take a deep breath in and let all that used up air out to make way for a fresh new breath. We have an exciting opening hymn this morning. I'm going to invite Kathy Middleman to give us a little instruction.
Good morning. Number 188 is a round, and we'd like to go ahead and do it in a round this morning. So let's split this half of the congregation. You sing with the ladies of the choir, and this half of the congregation sing with the gentlemen of the choir, and I'll bring you in. We're going to do it once all together, and then we'll start it in a round twice through, with you first, and then I'll cue you. Good luck. Let's stand up. This is all together. 1, 2.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, lover you worship, lover of living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come yet again,
Good morning, everyone. My name is James Poteet, and now we will light a candle of acknowledgement for the Cherokee and Muskogee nations of people who lived here before us. As you use, we repudiate the doctrine of discovery that gave cover to those who destroyed and displaced indigenous communities in the Americas and elsewhere. We resolve to eliminate the doctrines present in our policies, programs, and theologies. May this candle remind us of our interconnection, and may there be healing in and among all nations of people. We also light our chalice, whose light is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. And it's a reminder of our commitment to be a beacon of love and hope to all who enter. Today's chalice lighting words come from songwriter Lori McKenna. Keep a Bible by your bed, even if you never read it, like a candle in the drawer in case the lights go out. In your chest, there is a compass, in your blood, a calling, and in your head, a vision that you call the dream. Leaving is part of that dream. If you didn't, you might never know. And now, in the spirit of beloved community, let us greet each other as we share our congregational affirmation, we need not think alike to love alike. Those in the sanctuary, feel free to move around. For those online, use the chat to introduce yourself or unmute to say hello.
Congratulations, graduates.
Good morning. I'm Sandra Malik, and I'm a member of the pastoral care team. And now's the time in our service where we pause to reflect on the joys, sorrows, and concerns in our lives. If you'd like, in the future, you can share with the community and put your joys and sorrows on this book, and it'll be waiting for you at the back of the sanctuary. So a few minutes before service, put it in the book to share. Okay, we're gonna take a pause here to take a deep breath. Gotta get in the mood. I invite you to use this time to take a deep breath and to notice what's on your heart. Are there joys enlivening your spirit? Perhaps there are sorrows or concerns you carry with you today. Allow this time to give them space, to be held with gentleness and compassion. Take another breath, in and out, as Sara lights our candles of care. Allow yourself to receive these joys from around our community. From the Klein family, finally, Charlie Klein has good news to share. He and Aaron Thornton are blessed to announce their engagement to be married, but there's no date yet. Judy Griffin, I'm proud of my granddaughter, Julia. She's graduated from college, from high school last night, and has plans to start college in North Carolina in I don't have my glasses on. Judy, can you tell me what's the last bit of that? Oh, with scholarship. Very nice. Okay, James Petite. He has a joy. My mother is getting married this week. She and Mel will live in Rome, Georgia. And then Gail Crouch. She has an invitation for you. All Emersonians are invited to an execution vigil at Marietta Square, Tuesday, May 17th, 6:30 to 7:30. Okay, we have not had an execution in Georgia for 2 years, and we pray for the victims because there are some that have been on death row for 45 years. Okay, and then the last invitation is from Wynn Horsley. She's a sun dancer. It's part of her spiritual practices. And her group, her community, is headed out to Humbleisha tomorrow evening. This is a 4-day ceremony in which they sweat, then go into isolation, give away their food and water, and during this time they cry for their vision, for their big prayer to take to this year's tree. This begins the Sundance. It's time to begin collecting prayers of the community to take to the tree. If you would like to write a blessing or a supplication for the sun dancers, this basket, and I'll put some paper in here at the end of our service, please leave a note there. Wynn adds, I brought all the prayers from last year with me and read them over and over during purification and really enjoyed seeing the handwriting and knowing the hearts of each prayer. At the end of the ceremony, the prayers are burned in the ceremonial fire, further releasing the intent of each up to the Creator in a burnt offering. And thank you for supporting these efforts. Some sorrows are not, they're too tender to be mentioned in the book. But you might want to just speak out the name of someone who you are holding in your heart. And those at home, you can put the names of your beloved in the chat. Let us send our heartfelt, caring intentions to all beings everywhere by offering the Buddhist prayer of loving kindness, and it's at the bottom of your order of service. May we all be filled with loving kindness. May we all be free from harm and suffering. May we all be well in body, heart, and mind. May we all be at peace. Blessed be.
Thank you, Sandra. And as she said, we'll have this in the back at the end if you would like to contribute to Wynn's practice. One way we seek to live ethical lives is by partnering with organizations who work to make a difference in the world. We encourage you to support their work by giving of your time and resources. This month's partner is Must Ministries, specifically their summer lunch program. This summer, Must will feed thousands of kids in the metro Atlanta area. Their goal is to provide breakfast and lunch to at least 6,000 children for 9 weeks. Approximately 540,000 meals will be distributed across Cobb, Cherokee, Douglas, Fulton, Paulding, and Gwinnett counties. If you are online, the link for giving is posted in the chat. If you are in the sanctuary, please offer a donation or take a card describing the many ways to give as the baskets are passed. All donations, unless otherwise specified, will be shared equally between Emerson and the partner organization. Thank you so much, as always, for your generosity. This morning, the story for all ages was going to be presented by Reverend Deborah, but she's not feeling well, so Beth Klein is filling in. I'm going to hand it over to her.
I have a story for all ages. Would any young and young at heart folks like to join me? Please have a seat. Be my guest. I have someone special here. And I'd like to tell you a Buddhist wisdom story. So Buddha was a wise prophet, just an amazing person that lived thousands of years ago. And he was highly respected. And an entire school of thought, like a religion, started around the Buddha. And all the folks that follow his guidelines and his tenets in life are called Buddhists. So when you are a Buddhist, you get trained as a Buddhist monk at a monastery. And I'd like to tell you a story about a Buddhist teacher at a monastery, and this monk was called Lama Dogon. Can you say that with me? Lama Dogon. Now, Lama is not like your mama is a llama kind of Lama. It's the Lama that means he's the lead teacher at this monastery. So he had an entire class of boys, and he liked to pull little tricks on his students so that they learned these lessons, not always through reading and writing and science, but practical lessons they would use in life. So he announced to his class one day, he gathered them all close, like you were close to me, and he said, "We have a problem here at the monastery. We need money. So what I need you children to do is to go into the village and find things of value that people have in their possession. So it might be something like a wallet or a watch or a bike. And I'd like you to gather those things very, very carefully without telling them. And don't let anyone see you. Now let me repeat, he said. Gather these things. Be very, very quiet. Do not let anyone see you do it. And bring them back to the monastery and we'll sell them. And we'll have money that we need. The boys looked at each other. But they'd always been told not to ignore the teachings of their leader. Always be respectful and do what their teacher says. So they got in a line and they started to file out of the building and onto the path to the village, except for one student. That one student sat in the back and just sat there. Lama Dogon went to him very sternly and said, "Why are you not in line going to the village to retrieve things that we can sell?" And the young boy said, "Dear teacher, I cannot do as you've asked. I cannot go into the village and take things without other people seeing me, because I myself will see myself doing it. And I know that stealing is not right." What do you think Lama Dogon did?
Expelled him.
Oh, expelled him. There you go. What do you think? Anybody have any ideas?
I think his head exploded.
His head exploded. Okay, there you go. Pretty drastic things happened, could have happened. But no, a big smile spread across Lama Dogon's face, and he said, "You, my son, have learned the great lesson. Please, come with me, join me for tea and a cookie, and we'll wait for the others to return." So the lesson was learned, right? And this is a statue of the Buddha. I'd love for you to join me in singing our song of dedication, which you'll find in the order of service, and then we'll go out to play.
As do we
There is a joke about seminary that I heard a lot this year. I use the word joke loosely because I don't think it's very funny. It describes the 3 years of seminary as follows. The first year is crucifixion. The second is death. And the third, thank goodness, coming up is resurrection. I don't think it's funny. I'm not Christian, so that part is sort of lost in me. And also, no one told me that I was undertaking this death and crucifixion thing until it was already well underway. It was a pretty hard year, just in terms of making sure everything was done, continuing with this whole pandemic situation, you know, life. There were days that I asked myself how I got here. Here, Georgia, here, Emory, here, Emerson, 2022, all of it. I like to think of my life as a story and myself halfway through an extraordinary life. That math is a little, if I continue, depends a lot on some luck. But the truth is, there's not one story for me or for any of us, and if there is, it's an epic tale made up of hundreds of stories. I'm going to share 3 of my stories with you this morning in an attempt to tell how I got here, the lessons I have learned, and maybe a little bit about where I'm going. That is also pretty dependent on how lucky I am. This first story is a doozy. I read a book earlier this week that said, you know it's a good story when you want to bail on it all the way through, and this is one of those, so hopefully it pans out. This story has been with me since my earliest memories. I first recall noticing when I was about 8 that when I passed by streetlights in a car, they would go off. They would flicker out, go dark. It wasn't every light, and it wasn't every time I passed by. I couldn't control it. But sometimes it happened and sometimes it didn't. It happened enough, though, that I noticed it. And I would casually ask, hey, did you see that light go out? And everyone always would be like, I don't know, right? I sort of developed this theory at that age that I was seeing them blow out, that the light bulb was at the end of its life and it was extinguished. I just happened to be seeing that over and over again. And as I got older, the same thing continued to happen. My theories evolved. When I was in high school, I figured out there must be some mechanism in the light fixture so that when you were getting close to it, you could see the light, but then when you got under it, it looked like it was out, but it really wasn't. Obviously, no electrical engineering in my background. I had no idea what I was developing, but I was just trying to find some reason why I was seeing this thing. I was questioning first if I was actually seeing it, and then I was questioning how I could be seeing it and nobody else was. It was very complicated. I knew the whole time that it was not something that people wanted to engage and talk about, right? I knew that it was weird. It was complicated to investigate because it happened so randomly. Usually when you're in a car, you can't do a U-turn and try it out again, usually. You're not likely to put your plans, I wasn't likely to put my plans on hold for an impromptu science experiment. One time, I overheard from another room my best friend's mom saying that she noticed streetlights go out too. She's the only other person who ever agreed that what I was seeing might actually be real. When I was 20 and I was in college, I had this job where I would pick an 8-year-old Adam up at school, and we would go home, we would do his homework and make dinner until his mom got home. And his parents had a rule that you had to read 30 minutes every day. Whatever he wanted, he had to read 30 minutes. So when he read, I also would read, just pick something off his bookshelf and read. One day I picked a book called The Supernatural Phenomenon Encyclopedia. And I started flipping through. I could have fallen out of my chair when I came across the entry for SILS, Streetlight Interference Syndrome. Basically, it described what I've already told you, that some people claim that this phenomenon happens as they approach streetlights, not every one, not every time, but on a regular basis. I went home and looked at this will tell you exactly how old I am. I went home and looked at the too new to be much help internet. I didn't find much. Those early days were not as informational as they happen to be now. But I did find an organization in England called SLI, Streetlight Interference Sliders, and a slew of theories guessing at what was happening. They ran the gamut from electrical engineers talking about the mechanics of streetlights, all the way to supernatural powers. There was, and as far as I know is, no proof that anything is actually happening at all. My favorite theory is kind of a combination of the science and woo-woo. Is perhaps what is happening is that the streetlights in particular have these very long, miles-long circuits and use relatively weak electric current. And because of that weakness and that large size, they're really susceptible to outside interference, which could be produced perhaps by a person or some other thing with some energy. I like that one because it makes sense to me, and because it accounts for why it happens sometimes, and when it happens, when it doesn't happen, when it doesn't. I would start to notice that when my emotions were heightened, when I was really excited or sad or mad, the lights would go out more frequently. Story number 2. I have been very preoccupied by the concept of dharma, or divine purpose, in my life. I truly believe, it's probably the thing that I believe most, if each one of us did what we loved to do most, if we devoted ourselves to that, the world would be a perfect place. Another person who is preoccupied with that concept of divine purpose is Oprah Winfrey. That's just one of the large number of things we have in common. Because of her interest, Oprah often asks her interviewees how they arrived at the work they do. On March 26, 2019, she published a book called The Path Made Clear, which brought together these pieces of her interviews in which she had asked those people how they found their path or their calling. One of the interviews that she published in A Path Made Clear is between Oprah and Sister Joan Chittister, who is a Benedictine nun. And I'm just going to read this part to you because it's my favorite story and you deserve to hear it word for word. So Oprah says to Sister Joan, I've never quite met anyone who knew at 3 years old, standing, looking at a casket, that being a nun was their calling. Can you tell me how you knew that? Sister Joan says, my father died. He was 23. My mother was a 21-year-old widow with this little baby. I was 2.5 or so. She dressed me up to take me to the funeral parlor. Her brothers and sisters said, you cannot take that child to a funeral parlor. But my mother said her father died. She has to grieve like we do. She's going. So she's holding me in front of the casket. I've got my little hands around her head. I can feel the tears. Her face is wet. I know something terrible has happened, but more so, I'm looking over her shoulder at the end of the casket. I say, Mama, what are those 2 things? What are those things? There, at the end. And my mother hugs me a little and says, honey, Those are the sisters. They are special friends of Daddy's, and they are special friends of God's. They taught your daddy in high school, and they're going to stay here tonight. And when God comes for Daddy's soul, they're going to say, "This is Joan's daddy, and he is very good. Take him straight to God." And I said to myself, I want to be one of those. I thought that was the best job in the world. You just sit around waiting, and angels come. And I spent the rest of my life running across streets to say hello to nuns. Hi, sister. Hi, sister. I went to a Catholic high school, and I was not disappointed. Those sisters were loving, they were smart, they were competent. And they became a model of womanhood for me a long time before there was any language for it. I tell that story as often as I can. Whenever I have the opportunity to fit it in, I do. Here we are. It is such a powerful story to me. I truly credit it with changing my life. I read it when it came out, 2019. I, since then, have quit a great job, sold a business, moved to Georgia, started seminary, and met all of you. I tried to use that story as the basis of a whole sermon when I took Reverend Deborah's sermon writing class. I was going to use it as a piece of a larger message about angels, scary Old Testament angels, New Age angels. I got really frustrated with myself because I started thinking about angels and how silly that is to think that there are angels who deliver your soul to God. The story was so impactful to me, and here I was trying to whittle it down to its most obvious keyword. I was frustrated with myself that I couldn't expand my idea of angels in that moment to be more imaginative. I love this story. I didn't want to not love this story, so I set the whole thing aside. Story number 3. My second year of seminary, this last year, required me to do an internship. Here we are. We have a huge amount of choice in selecting exactly where this internship will be. My classmates chose nonprofits and churches, organizations across the greater Atlanta area, and I chose Emerson for a lot of very good reasons. Reverend Deborah is a great match for my background. I would be able to do all sorts of things and learn about many different areas of congregational work. It's close to my house. That helped. The most important task, though, that I gave myself this last year was figuring out, now or never, am I a Unitarian Universalist? Can I be a Unitarian Universalist? I mean, I read the seven principles. I read them often, and I think, yeah, obviously, of course. I truly don't know that many people that wouldn't agree with the 7 principles, luckily. But is that enough? I kept asking myself, I don't know. 10 months is a tight timeline for me. You can imagine, I've been sitting on this streetlight thing for more than 40 years. I read books, I talked to so many of you. I was dead set against not feeling grounded in my choice. But I wasn't sure it was gonna happen. Meanwhile, I'm up to my ears in Christian systematic theology. In one particular class, my professor was soliciting comments from my classmates on how they understand the Trinity. Were the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit different? Did they practically take different functions in their lives? Could Mary be added to the Trinity? Do we need to interact with the Trinity in a specific way to elicit the best connection? I can't tell you how much I respect this particular professor and my classmates that answered the questions that day, but for me, it was all too picky. A phrase popped into my head that day that has occurred to me so many times since. God is bigger than that. I knew I was on the right track when I heard one of you say, they shall remain nameless. One of you said those exact words to me as we were having a conversation about Unitarian Universalist theology months later. God is bigger than that. My eyes got big. Another one of those, is this really happening? Did I just hear what I thought I heard? A couple weeks later, I was headed upstairs to teach junior youth RE, and I walked into room 205, and I saw this poster right here. It had been there the whole time, but I just, that day, looked up, and I later learned that it's a version of the 7 principles for kids, the 7 promises of Unitarian Universalism. One of the reworkings in particular struck me: yearn to accept and learn about ourselves, others, and capital M, mystery. In many ways, that is the current ending to each of these stories, and the story of me and my evolution so far. I don't know why the streetlights go out, but I know that they do. For me, and not everyone else, or at least not everyone else is noticing. Joan Chittister's story is not about whether angels exist in heaven or on earth. It is about knowing what you are meant to do and doing it. No matter how silly that might sound to anyone else, for me, it's all mystery. Capital M, mystery. And getting to engage in thinking about that and how it impacts us individually and together is the most interesting conversation there is, in my opinion. The lessons I have learned here are the lessons I have learned so many times, so many days, so many different ways, ones that are a part of me. That is the kind of connection that I was looking for to Unitarian Universalism, and it is the thing that you've all helped me find in earnest this time. I am so grateful for that. I'm happy to tell you that though my internship is over, I will be sticking around. I'll be part of the pastoral care team still, and the Creativity Matters listening circle still. I plan to become a member here at Emerson, but have not gotten my hands on that elusive membership book yet. I keep hearing about it. I'm starting to wonder if it exists. I have one more year of seminary, which will include an internship at the Winship Cancer Institute in their spiritual health department. I'm also excited to work on an independent study project this coming next year on the theology of quilts. After that, I'll be a chaplain resident for at least a year, maybe 2. I just can't tell you how much I really appreciate all the welcoming, consistent support, opportunity, and ways you have engaged me this school year, and I hope I can contribute as much back to Emerson in the coming years. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's okay. It's all right. Thank you so much, Sarah. We love you. If you'll please rise in body or spirit as you are able and join us in our closing hymn, number 23 in the gray hymnal, Bring Many Names.
Celebrating parable and story.
Me again. I just want to take an extra moment to say thank you. I had imagined myself, was that Romper Room where they would call out different people, like this person and that person, or an Academy Award speech, thank you to this person for this, thank you. And I just can't do that because we'd be here for another 3 hours. But I just really, really appreciate each and every one of you and your time and your contributions. And I this all came, sort of hard year, so I was just getting, do the next thing on the list, get this done, get that done. And I had not expected walking through the doors at Reverend Deborah's installation to be so overwhelmed with emotion and seeing the choir and hearing that music and seeing all of you and just the earnestness of your contributions to this congregation are unbelievable, truly. So thank you for that on my behalf and on behalf of each other. It does matter. It can feel like we're all just going through the motions sometimes, but I feel like if you have inserted this place and your dedication to this community into your emotions, that it is really valuable, not just for you, but just because it is. So thank you again. Thank you, thank you. James.
And as I mentioned earlier, Reverend Deborah is not with us this morning, but I got an email from her that she wanted me to read, and please forgive me if I stumble. My eyes are pretty weak. A special thank you to Sara Drew for all the work you have done this year at Emerson. You taught our junior youth and supported the justice team with Share the Work partners, and served on the pastoral care team, plus offered us several wonderful services, today included. We thank you and wish you well in your continued studies, and I hear the good news that the good news that though your intern time is ending, you will be staying with us as a soon-to-be member of Emerson. Sarah, we are so glad that you are here. In Sarah's honor, please join us for a special appreciation cake during fellowship time, starting directly after the service. We hope that you have been nourished in heart and mind by our worship today. If you would like more information about Unitarian Universalism or about involvement here at Emerson, please stop by our welcome table outside the sanctuary. Join us next week as Reverend Deborah speaks about life's exciting and sometimes scary transitions. With a little bravery and a lot of love, we may find that those first steps are not as hard as we once thought. Now join me in the closing response as we extinguish the chalice. The words are posted in the chat and appear in your order of service. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. Please join us, of course, for refreshments after the service. Those online will be directed to virtual breakout rooms for fellowship time. Sarah, are there any other important announcements? Anything else? No? Well, in that case, we bid you to go in peace and take peace wherever you go. Thank you.